everyone, and welcome to the Owl Pod, the official podcast of Temple Athletics. I'm your host, Kevin Copp, and our guest today is Adam Fisher. Coach Fisher just began his third season as the head men's basketball coach here at Temple. After previous stops at Villanova, Penn State, and Miami, he has amassed 33 wins in his first two seasons, which is second most among Temple coaches behind only the legendary John Chaney. And Coach Fisher led Temple to its first ever American Conference Championship game appearance in his first season in 2024. Great conversation about a unique path into college coaching. Here is our good friend Adam Fisher after this quick word from our Alpod sponsors.
And we're back with the action. Coke Zero Sugar might be the best Coke ever.
That's right, Jim. With an irresistible taste and zero sugar, Coke Zero Sugar is a must-try for any sports fan. So make sure you... Wait, Jim, I didn't mean try it right now. We're still on the air.
Best Coke ever? Take a taste, Jen.
Really?
No, not right now, Jen. We got a game to call.
So obviously, I think one of the big things, if I go back to the kind of press tour and your hiring here as the head coach, back in, May of 2023, so we're 2.5 years in now. I know one of the big things is always, hey, we've got kind of a native son coming home, right? Born in Bucks County. Is that true that you were born there? Did you grow up there? Take us back to kind of where it all started.
Yeah, no, originally from Bucks County, born and raised there. My family owned a hotel and restaurant in Warrington, PA, that we had for 50 years with my grandfather. And it was really a special place. There was a hotel part two that his brother ran. And then the kids kind of took over it, called the Warrington and Warrington Motor Lodge. So, we spent a lot of time in that area in Bucks County, went to high school at CB East. So again, that's where I spent my first 18 years of my life there. And, probably this is the closest me and my wife both have been back this way since we left to go to college.
Now, is she from the area as well?
Yep, she's from Bucks County too. Went to Council Rock, did not know each other at all, and had to meet in Miami. So that's where we met. And then when you're living in Miami and you come back for the holidays, it's great that both sets of parents were about a 10-minute car ride. So it was easy to see a lot of family when you used to fly back in.
It's an incredibly small world story. I've got the same thing. I went to the University of Georgia. I met my wife down there who's from Cherry Hill, or Marlton, Cherry Hill area. I'm from King of Prussia. So it's funny, the displaced Northerners seem to find each other somehow.
No, you're exactly right. That's awesome.
But tell me about, I think it's interesting. I was trying actually to Google. There's no way to Google or look this up, but you look at the percentage of current head coaches in Division I that are former players. And I think your path is so interesting, right? Just having gone a different route. And I think for, kind of a lay person like myself, I'm inspired by looking at your journey and the steps that you took to get to where you are. So tell me about, just kind of growing up in that area. Are you playing sports through high school? Was there a thought at some point of playing into college? Or, what was your athletic career and your prowess growing up around CB East?
Yeah, no, look, when I was younger, my brother played, basketball, baseball, soccer. I played all the same for WAA. I think it was called Warrington Athletic Association. My dad coached both our teams, and just a great experience. Just loved, having him. That's where my love for coaching came from, him coaching us. Then got to high school, played baseball and basketball at CB East. Knew I wasn't good enough to play at the next level, and I always wanted to get into coaching. Got hurt my senior year with some knee stuff, a couple knee surgeries, and right then and there, I knew I wanted to coach. So from that, I talked to a lot of people. Hey, how do you get into this if you're not going to be a player? And it was go be a manager. So my whole family, a bunch of Penn Staters, went to Penn State, became a manager, and I was like, this is the worst thing in the world. You're wiping up the sweat. You're getting there an hour early. You're doing laundry. I don't like doing my own laundry. Now I'm doing other people's laundry. But it was the best experience. It kind of opened my eyes to the whole, college athletics, specifically basketball. I've always loved basketball. I think when I was in second grade or whatever, I may be messing that grade up, but they ask you in school, write down what you want to be when you're older. And I wrote like college basketball coach. So my mom, I think, still has it somewhere or something, but, I've known for a while what I wanted to do, and then just had to figure out the path to get there. I thought being a student manager was the best way. And from there became a GA. And then from there, basically I've had every title prior to coming to Temple that did not involve head coach. So player development, director of ops, assistant coach, associate head coach, video coordinator, done each role. And it's really helped prepare me to be in this role.
What was your dad like as a coach? Because I feel like that goes one of two ways, right? And my dad was interesting. He was an older dad, but he had kind of this weird legendary little league career before we were ever born. He was a coach as like a bachelor, and he took Staten Island Little League to the state championship. It's the only time they've ever been there, but that was in 1975. So that was like a life before I was born. And then I was doing the same thing you were. I'm playing, just the rec league in Upper Marion and King of Prussia. And so, I mean, I think he was slumming it by being my 7 and 8 year old coach, and I had no aptitude whatsoever. It became very clear, but he was great. But I saw a lot of dads are obviously, the stereotypical overbearing, dad as a coach. But clearly, if you're taking something away from that as a kid to say, hey, this is something that I'm seeing and that I want to do for myself, it must have been a good experience.
Yeah, first I was always amazed at the time commitment. Here he is. We had at the hotel and restaurant, we had big banquet facilities too. So there would be weddings every Friday and Saturday night, and he'd get home 1, 2 in the morning after 2 weddings. And here he is coaching at 8 a.m. Our basketball and our baseball team and soccer team, did it all. He was great. I think he was a big believer in, everybody getting an opportunity. I think my mom's a little bit more competitive than he is. He'd be up like 20, and I was good back then. I was pretty good. So
Yeah.
it helps when you are pretty good and you're the coach's son, because then people don't really complain that you're playing. He'd be like, all right, you got to come out. My mom would be like, we're up like 13. What do you mean? Like, they got to stay in. Uh, but it was a great experience, because I thought, it's something that connected us. Sports has always been huge in our family. We also won a state championship. He was a coach of the baseball team, Warrington, a 10-year-old state championship. And that was a great experience. And, you learn a lot from both parents, right? You learn, sometimes I'd want to go in the car ride after I knew I played bad with my mom. Like if there was 2 cars, right? And he was going to work, and because he'd be honest with me too, he didn't play that well, but he's also the first one to tell me great job and build me up. So it was a great experience, and I was excited to get to watch my brother do it too. I was definitely better than my brother, so I think my dad enjoyed coaching me more. But no, he just taught me about life and how to treat people, and I think all the, even to this day, people will stop me or stop them and back home and be like, man, remember, Mr. Neal, I was on the black team, and I think that impact you have was something I saw. Like, he did such an amazing job connecting with people and having an impact on their lives, obviously still to this day. So that was something that I really took from that.
So when you get to Penn State, you've got the kind of first link in the chain, right? Is okay, I'm gonna go be a manager. Do you remember what that process was like? You just kind of coming in. I mean, you played, obviously, you know the game and you know the sport, but do you remember what the process was like of actually was there like a true application, or how did you get that gig?
Yeah, we went to I remember going to um meet with the basketball. I think it was the director of ops. His name is Monty Shubik. He ended up being in the NBA for a while. I was with the Sixers a little bit. I think he runs the replay center right now in the NBA. And I remember him telling, and then I met a kid at Penn State who became my best friend in college, Pete Bordy, who was a local guy, grew up in State College. And I remember we both went in, and his dad was connected to Coach Paterno and a lot of people up there. And he was my brother's advisor in college. So we go up, hey, we'd love to be managers. And we basically were told, hey, it's full. So
Right.
you're disappointed. You're like, man, this is the worst. And then we got a call to come back in out of the blue. So I knew something happened. You didn't just magically 2 weeks later, and didn't fully understand the whole story. But 2 weeks later, we came back in and we were managers as freshmen. And then when everybody goes home over winter break, he obviously is from State College, so he stayed, and then I ended up staying. And I remember getting to go on a road trip to Indiana. I think was the first one as a freshman. You're like, this is
I
cool.
mean, that's pretty much as good as it gets. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but no, it was, it was a great experience, because it was humbling first, right? And then you get to learn from the coaches. You hang out with the players, so you're hearing their perspective. And Coach DeChellis was the head coach at the time, who we played against my first year. Talk about a crazy moment. You're coaching at Navy against the guy that was you were manager for. But it was a great experience, and it taught me so much. Guys like Danny Earl, who's the head coach at Chattanooga, Kurt Kanaski, who's coaching still at UNC Wilmington. Like, those were guys. Hillary Scott, some of the assistants when I was a manager, and just how they treated me the right way. Something I've always tried to take with me.
And then first kind of real foray in would be going to Villanova, which I imagine that's as good a landing spot as you could have. You're coming right out of school. Those jobs, you get the 1%, funnel down into, just kind of from the regular student population to become a manager. Now you say, okay, I'm going to go, get a paying gig in this and go be a GA somewhere. To land so close to home, to land at a program like Villanova, I know it's not popular here to say great things about Villanova, but you're working for Jay Wright. You're working in a program that, begrudgingly or not, we have to admit they know what they're doing there. That's a pretty good first gig, is it not?
Yeah, 2 years of Sweet 16 and a Final Four. I'm like, this is easy. This is what we
Yeah.
do. No, it was great. When I graduated college in 4.5, so I took a little extra time, and I student taught that second semester or the first semester. So I was able to stay on with the Penn State basketball program for that next half of the semester, and was a substitute teacher in State College school district.
How did that go for you?
It was great. I put on a movie, and then I send 175 emails to every Division I looking for a GA job. And, I think I got back like 4 or 5 responses, and 2 of them were out of the office replies. So that was like a downer. Villanova was one of them. I was lucky enough to play for Derek Wright, great coach, great person, at CB East before he went to Council Rock to be a coach. And obviously it's Jay's brother. So there was some connection there. But it was tough trying to, when you get 175 no's, it can bring you down, and just try to stay positive. All it takes is one. And it was a great experience. I know where we're at and what you can say about other Big 5 schools, but I had 2 great years there. So grateful to Coach Wright. I learned so much. There's things I take in our program that I've taken from him. I've had conversations with him. The only thing I got mad at him about was when I was 22 years old, I'm driving him to a golf tournament, and he said, "Fish, if you ever want to be a great recruiter, don't learn to golf." Because I told him I'd never golfed before. So again, when you're 22 years old and Jay Wright talks to you, it's gold. Like, you not so.
Sure.
I never golfed to this day because Coach Wright said that to me. And then when I brought it up at the Coaches versus Cancer Gala a couple of years ago, he said, "I said that." So I don't golf because of Coach Wright.
The irony, of course, being that you're driving him on his way to a golf. Yeah. Do as I say, not as I do.
Exactly.
But did you have a lot of? Did he give you the time of day? It's a.
He did. He's first class.
Yeah.
He's just an incredible ambassador is probably the best word, right? He was like a coach, a teacher, a leader, father figure to everybody in the like whatever it is. He's so real. He's so respectful. And back then I was really quiet, and you just try to be a sponge, right? Like, every day I would go home and try to take notes on things he'd say or do. And I'm just amazed at the way he can build a program and, find the right people that fit him. And I think that was something that was really important. And, but no, it was great. Like I said, Sweet 16 and a Final Four. And, again, you're thinking, man, you're going to do this every year.
Yeah, and then, you look at the next 6 years. I know you alluded to this earlier, that you've basically done every job, every rung on the ladder, everything, So the 6 years, though, between you graduate with your master's now from Villanova, right, and you're going out into this is now the real world. You got to get a real, full-time gig. And so you go to Boston College, 2 years as a director of ops, back to Penn State for another 4 years. I remember just how I felt coming out of school, and I wanted to be a broadcaster. And that's, I think, similar to coaching. It's a really hard, you don't just walk into that gig, right? And I just know that 6 years now, looking at it from our, mid, late 30s, feels like, probably a snap of the fingers and, boom, 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 when you get there. It had to feel like a long time when you're going from, 22 to 28, give or take, before you get that real first assistant coaching job. That's a lot of time to be putting in. I'm sure there were some assistant coach jobs at some mid-majors along the way that you probably came and went after? I mean, to walk into Miami in 2015, tell me about kind of the 6 years that led to getting that gig.
Yeah, it was great. I'll be the first to tell you, I became a video coordinator and I did not know how to do video at all. So it was a nightmare. I think I slept in the Bryce Jordan Center several nights as a video coordinator. Couldn't figure out, back then it was DVDs and video exchange, not I didn't have VHS, but DVDs, and you're shipping them out and all this stuff. But it taught me you got to figure it out, right? It's just like a game. Like no coach wants to hear, I don't have the tape. So you got to just figure out how to get the job done. Being a director of ops, I think, to be a great coach, I think you have to be a director of ops. I think it's the hardest job in any program. You deal with so many different things that you can control, but then a lot of stuff you can't control, right? Is there weather and we're going to be delayed flight? Now, does that delayed flight mess up your shoot around time? Now you have to push back a meal at the hotel. There's so many things as a director of ops that I think people don't understand that you have to do. So that role was incredible for me. I loved it. I tried to figure out, I used to tell the coach at Miami, I will take off anything off your plate that's non-basketball. Whatever I can do to make your life easier so you can go coach. My job is the director of ops. And then at night, guy like Coach Michael Huger, who's obviously our associate head coach, I'd go in his office and I'd listen to him, how he made recruiting calls and learn that way. But I think you got to do the best job in the job you're in. And that's the one thing I think I've always done. When I was the video guy, I want to be the best video guy in the country. I wasn't trying to get to the ops spot. Then when I was the ops, I wanted to be the best ops I could. And I think that's critical to success is, being 2 feet where you are. And, if you do the right thing over and over again, I think then you'll get to that next step, but you got to do the job you're in. You got to do it to the best of your ability.
What was the moment like? I mean, not only getting your first assistant coaching job, but to have it be working for Jim Larrañaga and to be at Miami, to be, you're going right into the ACC and, that's a big time gig. What was that moment like, first of all, to get that, to have that be the job, but also the learning curve of, okay, now, you're responsible for a ton of non-basketball stuff still, but now you've got the basketball on your plate as well. What was that like?
Well, first, I always joke that really my first assistant coaching job was probably at Bowling Green. So I was the director of ops. Michael Huger gets the head job at Bowling Green. He tells Coach Larrañaga he'd like to bring me, right? And it's kind of like you got to get Coach L's approval. And Coach L said, great, that'd be awesome, his first assistant job. So I gave like all my gear to the managers at my time at Miami. I left in my office. I still have the pictures piled high, sneakers, all you can be. And the day before I left to go to Bowling Green, Coach Larrañaga called me and asked me to come back to Miami. And I was like, oh, this is awesome. I'm being an assistant coach. And he said, but I want you to be the director of ops. So I was like, whoa, wait, what? To come back? But, there was some downness in my voice, right? Like, hey, this is my first assistant job. But, I was so grateful to him. And it's just kind of how I was raised in this industry is, hey, if that's what you need me to do, coach, I'll come back and be your ops guy. And he said, I want you to come back, be the ops guy. But the next time someone leaves, I will bump you up to an assistant coach in the ACC. So like, that's awesome. Thinking, maybe 2-3 years, who knows? And then 3 weeks later, Eric Conkle's now the head coach at Tulsa, gets the head coaching job at Louisiana Tech. So in a 3-week span, Michael Huger becomes the head coach at Bowling Green. Eric Conkle becomes the head coach at La Tech. And now I get to be an assistant coach in the ACC in 3 weeks. I think Mrs. Larrañaga said it best. You should go play the, the lottery or whatever. It was just great. You work your whole career to get to that. I felt so prepared in the basketball front. Because I worked for Jay Wright, because you work for Coach Larrañaga. So you watch practice and the things that they can pick up, their details, it's just amazing. So that was great. I felt recruiting would be good because of how, I learned from people. So there was some things you had to learn. Like I remember being like, hey, when do we decide our recruiting? Like it was like September 7th. And I remember Chris Caputo being like, you didn't book your flight yet to go wherever. I was like, wait, what? So I remember like, yeah, I did that, like going on my phone, Marriott, book this. But it was a great experience. And I think, it's because of the people I was around. They prepared me for that moment. And it was just exciting to be in that spot.
So to flash forward to, I guess, the point at which you and I first got to know each other. I mean, we were talking in the run up and the process to you getting the job here at Temple, and you come in as a first-time head coach. I think probably one of the biggest things that I'm sure I'm not giving anything away that that was asked is, okay, well, how are you going to build a staff, right? Because I think as sitting head coach, it's an easier. You've got your guys in your network, and you're able to make some calls. From your standpoint, as you look at kind of coming into that first year, and obviously how it's evolved now in year 2 and year 3, you get the chance. I think that's so unique to, okay, you sat in the video coordinator's chair. You know what you need now as a head coach in a video coordinator. You sat in the director of ops position. You know what kind of personality is going to succeed in that role. So, how did that experience that you were kind of, picking up here and there along the way allow you to be as effective as you've been in coming in and building your staff now when you get the chance to do it yourself?
The biggest thing I believe in is having great people. And I think when you have great people, you can do great things. So for me, it was finding guys that I trust, that know me. And, whenever I worked for someone, I knew I would run through a wall, right? If Coach Larinaga told me, go do whatever it was, I was doing it, right? It was just that. And to find guys that I knew have my back all the time and be together, and then also know that I want to help them was really important. It started with Michael Huger and Jimmy Polisi, right? Our ops guy who, was at Temple. We hired him at Miami as a GA. He did a great job there. And then, like I said, Coach Huger was kind of a guy. He's been a head coach for 8 years. Helped me tremendously, and I had an opportunity to build a staff, and he was available. I was like, come on, Mike, let's do this. And then you retain some guys that were, I've known for a while that were here. And then you had a guy like Bobby Jordan, who's a guy that, I've worked with, did not work with, but every time I go recruiting, I thought I could outwork people when I was younger. I'm a little bit older now, but he'd be there. I'd be like, how are you in the gym before me? Like I was determined to beat Bobby Jordan at the gym and his Philly ties. And then you just want to find the right people. I think, Andrew Ortelli was one of our first guys, came with us, video guy. Like, this dude's a video guru. Like, he is 4,000 million times better video coordinator than I ever was. Like, it's amazing some of the stuff he picks up. So I think as you're going to build your staff, and again, it's being with GAs, I'm probably a little bit more involved in a lot of the process of who we hire and what I'm looking for because I was in that role. And that's why I see a guy like Seth Needle. We brought Seth Needle in as a GA. His dad mentions to me at a Big 5 event my first week on the job, hey, my son's looking for a GA job. Most people were probably like, oh, okay, thanks, keep moving. And this is when the Big 5 was switching to the pod system, and people thought I was lying to them. I had no idea we were switching to a pod system. I'm like, hey, why are we at the arena today? I had no clue. And then Seth interviewed, did a great job, and then he got promoted to be on staff. So I think and then we've added pieces, guys leave and guys come in, and it's guys that want to have a common goal and do a great job. And again, that's why this offseason added Bill Courtney. Bill's someone that I've spoken to probably every other day for the last 5 years. I joke with him, like, there was no transition. He's watched every Temple game since I've been the head coach. We'd call each other last year after games because he was the interim head coach. And have a guy that's been a head coach for like he has for 7 years and been in that, Coach Larinaga tree, I think is something that's really important because we're trying to build it from what you know and what you liked. And a lot of what Coach L did is what we try to do here. So I think, I hope I'm not leaving anybody out, but I think that was what we were trying to do. We build the staff, the right people, and they've been fantastic.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the story about Seth because one of my questions was, does it give you more sympathy for, we all get those cold emails, right? Hey, Coach so-and-so, Mr. So-and-so, I'd love to come be a part anyway. I can, does having been in that, in that position give you a little more empathy for how tough it is for those kids that are just sending around cold emails trying to get a foot in edgewise?
No doubt. I try to respond to every single one. The only time I don't is if I know it says, hey, coach. And they're like, because I remembered when I would send these emails, I would triple check to make sure I spelled the name right and had the personalization. So if it just says, hey, coach, and it looks like a copy and paste, they don't mention Temple or they don't, then I'm kind of like, yeah, this is like a generic one. But I try to make sure I respond to anybody that reaches out because I know what that was like waiting by your laptop. Man, did I get an email yet? Did I get an email back yet? So I try to do that.
All right, so I know we've talked a lot about kind of the behind the scenes and the staff stuff, but tell me about just and you have I think a lot of your success and the stops along the way. You have made your bones as a recruiter, obviously a great on-court coach as well. But tell me about the relationships with players and kind of how that trajectory evolves. First of all, grad assistant, you're right out of school. You're basically a peer to these guys, and then you're working your way up and up and up, and now obviously it's a totally different dynamic being the head coach. For better and worse, there's that kind of extra level of separation that you may not have as a, Dobo, a director of ops, or an assistant coach. So just how have you kind of seen those relationships? What's kind of stayed the same in the course of your trajectory, and what's changed as things have progressed for you?
First you try to be the same person, but there's definitely a different relationship a little bit when you're the head coach, right? And you determine minutes, right? You go from suggestion to decisions. So for me, it's about relationships. I use this one a lot, but a guy like Lonnie Walker. We spent 2.5 years recruiting him, and you go 7 times a year, the max you're allowed by the NCAA. And when I'd go, you knew where to eat. I knew everybody in town. I knew the sneaker plug. You knew the guy at the barber shop. You knew the guidance counselor. You knew the social studies teacher. You got to know everybody. You got to know his aunt, his grandmom, his uncle. Ryan Shockley, a great guy. You name all these people. His dad, his mom. And it was like just building that relationship. And when you think about one person, you end up making like 13 different phone calls, like every 3 days. Like I used to be on the phone when I was a young assistant. I would literally be on the phone from probably 6:30 at night to 11 p.m. Just knocking it out, trying to not knocking out's the wrong way to say it, building that relationship, right? But you also had to make sure you touched everybody that was in the person's family. And I think now with the NIL, it's changed, right? That can stop a relationship or it can help a relationship right away. So it has come a little bit different. The one thing I will hope I hope our players would say it, but I love being a player's coach. I think, I spend time with them after practice. You sit down, you eat. And I joke, I go, I know you guys want me to leave so you can really talk when I walk in, right? But I think it's about building connections, building relationship. I remember early on with this team, Jordan Mason and I get into an argument at practice. I don't really argue with players often, but we got into a good argument. And, we went to breakfast together that next day, whatever it was. And he's one of my favorite people I've ever been able to coach. He gets it. He's older, comes from a great family. So I think you got to build that connection. You got to show people you care, and it can't be phony. It can't be like, you can tell what's genuine and not. I think players see right through it. So I think building that genuine connection is so important. I think you do it at different spots, right? When you're the young video guy, you hear some more stuff, right? Than you would, right? And then you become an assistant coach, and it's a little bit less of that. Then you become the head coach, and I'll be like, "Come on, guys, what were you talking about?" But no, it's I think again, making sure your student athletes know you care about them, I think is the number one thing you can do as a coach.
Well, since you mentioned it, I'll dip my toe in the water, and I don't know how much you are going to want to answer or talk about it, but you talked about NIL, and obviously, without getting into the specifics, it's a factor now, right? It's something that's out there, and the transfer portal and the way that rosters are constructed now is so different. And you and I are close to the same age, and so we came up at the same time. And obviously, it's an enormous change from the sport that you started coaching in to where you are now. Is there some part of you? I know it is what it is, but is there some part of you that says, "Oh, if I was 10 years older and I got the chance to do this in 2015 instead of 25, this would have been so much easier. This would have been off my plate"? How do you kind of wrestle with, just the current everything, the current landscape and everything that's going on?
Yeah, I got asked this question recently, like how much more difficult is it? And I don't know if difficult's the right word, right? It's changed, and change is difficult for everybody. In some regards, the difference is you actually recruit a little bit less right now than you had in years past, especially in this part, right? In September, October, I remember back in the day, you'd be out almost every day and you wanted to get back for practice. But the NIL is a huge factor. It's here. So it's a little bit more transactional than I'd like, but you got to find the right guys. So you got to get to know people. but it's, I say you become more of a fundraiser too, right? For as many days I think I recruit right now, I try to match that with fundraising and, checking in with, our alums and our donors and educating, right? For so long, you've been told you can't do this.
Yeah.
And now we're like, no, no, you can, you can, you can. And then you got to explain why. Right. And why do you do this? And how do you want to be competitive in your league? And it's an area that we've improved each year since I've been here in that department, but we've got to get it to a spot where it is towards the top of our league. And we've got to continue to fight that battle. It's just like recruiting. It's the same thing. Fundraising. It's the same thing. You got to keep building relationships and explaining, hey, this is why we need this and that. So it's changed a lot. But change sometimes can be good too. You can build rosters. Got 11 new guys. If you didn't have a transfer portal, who knows how many guys would be on your team right now, with how the rules are. But, I think it's here. We got to attack it the right way and build off of it.
I guess maybe the point, I think all of that makes sense. And I think to bring it back to the relationships where, like you said, 11 new guys on a team 10 years ago would have been unheard. You would have been like, oh my God, what happened? And now it's everyone. And this is not a Temple thing. This is in every school in Division I. We're high major, mid major, low, whatever. Everyone's dealing with it. How has the way that you are, you used to just be able to more or less count on the fact that you're going to have 4 years to build and develop and deepen that relationship. And that's that part's gone. But I look at, as you and I are sitting here on Thursday, it's the day after the season opener, and I look at, wow, the leap that Aiden Tobiasen made from year 1 to year 2 is so evident. The leap that Babatunde Duradola made from his freshman year to his sophomore year is so evident. And this is kind of, I guess, my old man, take is that these guys do benefit. You can see the benefits to the guys that do decide to stay. I think it really is mutually beneficial for everyone to have more time to get to know coaches and teammates and all that stuff. So from your perspective, how are you now, able to kind of develop and build those relationships in the same way when it may be a more compressed timeline? These guys are coming in, they're going to play. Maybe it's a year or two, maybe it's not, how does that part, are you still able to find that authenticity and that kind of relationship?
Yeah, I think it's hard on fans, right? I've said this often. I think you're going to see less retired jerseys than you've ever seen.
Sure.
Because as fans, you say, hey, I saw them as an 18-year-old, and now I see him when he's 23 years old, and he got an extra year, and it's 5 years. You don't see that. I talk about Connor Gall all the time. He's the only guy in our program that's been in 4 years. Yeah. Only guy. So I think there's challenges in that regard. I think retention is huge, right? And I think it's something that we are constantly talking about. And, some people say, man, you guys, you lost 5 to graduation, you lost 5 to the portal. And I'm like, we were one of 3 teams to keep 2 starters.
I know you're one of the most veteran teams in the conference. That's what it's,
So I think you just gotta, and I think it helps when you have numbers, right, and data. For us, we've tried to show guys, hey, we've had some guys that have been in our program, 3 guys that were kind of with us for 2 years since we've been here. Look at the jump they made from year 1 to year 2 with us, right?
Steve Settle has to be probably the example of that. Like, oh my God, what a leap.
Exactly. And I think that's what you got to show people is, hey, this wasn't a freshman who went freshman to sophomore. This was an older guy who got better. And again, he had great coaches at Howard. They did an amazing job. They went to the NCAA tournament. Coach Blakeney does a great job there. So it's just that steps of 2 years together, what happens. And my thing is going to be like, hey, who's going to be the guy that stays 3? Right? Like, I look at it. We got 2 sophomores. Hey, you want to be the guy that stays 3? You just went from this to this. Imagine what year 3 could be. But it's challenging, right? It's something that you hope that the relationship, like we said for all along, you hope that these guys know you care about you. And there are going to be sometimes financial decisions that you're going to not be able to, right? If one school is offering this crazy amount and this is where it doesn't make sense, right? It's just as a person that cares about that kid, you'd be like, no, you got to do that. But we want to show that you stay in our program, you get better. There's comfortability with terminology, how we practice, knowing the coaches, right? Like, I think our guys, like, Adam's like, hey, today's the day before a game. Like, it's a little bit lighter. Like, you can go hard, like right now, you get that mindset. And, we've kind of gone away from this word and I've kind of stopped saying culture because I think culture to me is a group of people that stay together for a long time. And then you add a little bit and then keeps going, your culture. To me, we now have been like, hey, this is our standard. We have a standard here. And this is what you got to do, right? This is our standard in the classroom. This is what our standard is on the court. This is what our standard is when we travel. And I think that's more of like, hey, this is how we do it. And we got to make sure we're holding up. Even like last night in the game, we with 4 minutes to go, we told them, hey, this is we have a drill called red zone. This is red zone. Like, this is our standard. You got to go win this 4 minute segment, and this is really important to us. That's our standard. That's what we do. We don't play the score. We play till the 40 minutes are up.
Well, I think anyone that has, first of all, been at the Liacouras Center or watched on TV and seen you on the bench, and then for those of us that have the privilege of, obviously, we get to travel together and we get to see just a little bit of the peek in behind the scenes and some of the work that goes on. I mean, the passion and the energy that you have it's just plainly obvious. I think, you can look at whatever kind of macro factors in the sport or in college athletics or whatever right now, but when you get out there and it's a college basketball game, there's still nothing like it, I think, at its best. And I think that's been, part of the fun of getting to watch, this team and this program when it's at its best is capable of doing something really special.
I'm trying to be calmer on the sidelines each year. We're having improvement. My wife has asked me to relax a little bit. So I take her suggestion. She doesn't give me a lot of basketball suggestions, but she said after the first few games, my first year, you're a lunatic. You need to calm down. So I've tried to calm down a little.
Is there anything else that's evolved in the 3 years? Is that the big change from if you went back and looked at year one, Adam Fisher, to year three? Is it just the calm demeanor? And I'm putting that in quotes for the listener.
It's funny. Bill Courtney said this to me once when he got here. He said year three he felt was like when you hit your sweet spot as a head coach, where you're just more comfortable with things, right? You figure out, hey, this is what works for us on game day. And I'm very routine. So everything for us, you've traveled with us, everything is routine. So I think you just get comfortable in this, and it lets you focus more on the basketball at hand and focus more on that. And other people now know what you want and what your standard is in your program. So those guys handle that stuff. So no, but it's a lot of fun. We've enjoyed, especially the start of this year, last year, playing at home, Liacouras Center in front of our fans. The support has been great. We want them to keep coming out. The students keep coming out, because when they're here, this building is rocking. The few times we've had it packed since I've been here has made a huge difference in the outcome of the game. And I'm grateful for the students that show up, and then all our support.
All right. Well, Coach, looking forward to another great go-round this year. Appreciate you carving out some time to talk and share your story, and we wish you all the best moving forward.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate everything, man.
All right, that is this week's episode of the Al Pod. I, of course, want to thank my guest, Adam Fisher, and remind you to check out Tuesday's episode with my co-hosts, David Litvin and Amelia Wright. They'll have an all-new edition on Tuesday. I'll be back with you next Friday. Please make sure to like, subscribe, leave a rating, leave a comment, tell your friends. You can get the Al Pod twice a week anywhere you get your podcasts. Tuesdays, Fridays, on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, anywhere at all. And, of course, you can follow us on Instagram at the Al Podcast. All right, that's it for today. I want to thank our team, Christy Bannon, Prince Moody, Justin Miller. Our executive producer is Dan Lobaz. I'm Kevin Copp. Thanks so much for listening, and go Owls.